April 22, 2024, 9:35 a.m., Yukon, Oklahoma. A 911 dispatcher answers a call. And this one's not your everyday emergency. A 10-year-old boy, voice shaking, says the words no kid should ever have to say. My parents and brothers are dead. Yeah, you heard that right. Dead. Cops show up to a suburban house on Mirage Street and bam! They step into a real-life horror movie. 5 bodies. The Candy family. Mom, Dad, and 3 kids, all lying lifeless. Each one a victim of gunfire. And if that's not bad enough, it gets worse. Who pulled the trigger? Oh, just Dad. 42-year-old Jonathan Candy. But here's the kicker. He spared one person. His youngest son. Why? What kind of twisted logic leads a man to murder his entire family and then say, yeah, I'll let this one kid live. Hi, I'm Mark, and welcome to True Crime Stories, where we dive into the darkest corners of the human psyche. Today, we're tackling the Candy family murders. A case so chilling it'll have you double-checking the locks on your doors. Jonathan Candy wasn't some textbook psycho. No signs of domestic violence, no shady behavior. On paper, he looked like your average fun-loving dad, a part-time worker at Paycom Center, a sports and entertainment hub, and a regular guy living his suburban dream. He had a wife, Lindsay Terry Candy, and 4 sons, Dylan, 18, Ethan, 14, Lucas, 12, and his youngest, 10 years old. They were the picture-perfect American family. Or so it seemed. So what the hell went wrong? What could push a father to commit the ultimate betrayal? A man who was supposed to protect his family ended up destroying it. As investigators dug deeper, they hit a wall. No history of abuse, no financial struggles, no obvious motive. This wasn't just a crime. It was a riddle wrapped in tragedy. So buckle up, because we're about to unravel the chilling details of a case that left everyone asking the same haunting question: why? Friends in Ethan's baseball coach TJ Armstrong told the media that Jonathan was a great guy who always thanked others for everything and gave hugs. He said that the Candy family was a beautiful family with amazing souls and should only be remembered in good memories. Just like her husband, Lindsay Candy was also an entertaining person who knew how to meet people and keep the room's atmosphere lively. The same had been transferred to their children as well, who were just like their parents. It was because of their friendly and entertaining personalities that the Candy family was a favorite among friends, neighbors, and relatives, according to her Facebook. And her childhood friend, Cammie Cruz Lindsay, was born and grew up in Prague, Oklahoma, and later moved to Yukon. Dylan Candy, the eldest son of the Candys, had recently graduated from Mustang High School in Yukon and was attending Oklahoma Baptist University for higher studies. Dylan had a passion for music and loved learning and playing different instruments while at Mustang High. Dylan was a drummer in his school band. This love for music continued into university as well, where he was a member of the Bison Brigade, according to Dylan's teachers and friends, at both school and college. He had a heart and was always willing to help Ethan Candy others. The Candy family was full of talent, and the second child of 14, Ethan Candy, played baseball for Mustang North High School. His teammates and coaches liked him for his competitive spirit and leadership qualities. According to the coach, TJ Armstrong, Ethan was his son's best friend and always brought positive energy to the team, regardless of how easy or difficult the situation was. Lucas was also a smart kid who wasn't only good in studies but also loved playing outdoors, and once noticed an island where there was a lot of often participated in sports with his brother, According to Lucas's friends, he was always full of energy and the massacre affection from the outside. Things seemed normal in the Candy family. Everyone thought of them to be a happy family who shared a strong bond with each other and loved staying and having fun together. But not everything you see is always true, and this is exactly what happened on the 22nd of April 2001. You notice what you see is always true, and this is exactly what happened on the 22nd of April 2001. 24. The youngest boy of the Candy family woke up as usual on the morning of April 22nd, 2024, expecting to have breakfast with his parents and brothers as usual. The boy couldn't hear what was happening outside his room because the fan was blowing air towards his bed. However, when he went out of his room around 9 a.m., it was a completely different scene, while there was complete silence in the house. The fire alarm rang briefly before going silent. It was unusual for Candy's family, and soon he discovered why. The house floor was full of blood stains, and his parents and 3 brothers were lying dead in a pool of blood. What was even more shocking was that they had all been shot to death in both panic and trauma. The boy dialed 911 from the phone. He reported to the police that his entire family had been murdered. The police officers and rescue workers could not believe their eyes when they arrived at the scene. Lindsay Candy and her 3 sons, Dylan, Ethan, and Lucas Candy, were all dead. As for the father, Jonathan Candy, he was also found with a gunshot to his head. Initially, the investigators thought that the Candy family had been murdered by an intruder. However, the truth was much more harrowing than that. Soon it was revealed that the man behind the massacre of the Candy family was none other than the father himself, Jonathan Candy. This was because gun was found near his body. It was a scene that painted a sad story after killing his wife and 3 sons. Jonathan shot himself and took his own life. When the word got out, relatives, friends, neighbors could not believe that something that harrowing could happen to the Candy family. One of their neighbors, while talking to the media, said that Jonathan was always a happy and kind person and that they couldn't believe that he killed his own family. Dylan, Ethan, and Lucas's friends were shocked at the news of their sudden, the investigation deaths. The investigators had some key questions to find answers to. After interviewing the people close to the Candy family, why would Jonathan kill his wife and 3 children? Why would he spare the life of his youngest son? These questions puzzled the investigators even more when they couldn't find any signs of domestic violence or conflicts among the family members. The Candy family had always appeared closely knit. To find answers to key questions, the investigators in the case tried digging deeper into the personal lives of each member, with special focus on Jonathan Candy in an attempt to understand what might have been the reason behind such an extreme act. The investigation included a scrutiny of Jonathan's finances, his mental health, and his relationship with his wife, and eventually led to a striking decision when the police chose to investigate the candy company over the candle makings, and thereby reveal the secret to their minds and hearts. Sans for this, the police needed every possible clue they could get, so they searched the Candy family's home thoroughly, with a special focus on the room where the family was found dead. The crime scene was filled with blood, but there was no sign of resistance or struggle from the victims. But it also raised an important question. If other victims didn't struggle, and the youngest son was sleeping in his room, completely unaware of the situation, then why did Jonathan Candy spare his life, even though he could have easily killed him as well? While the police were unable to immediately answer this question, it was a key factor to be considered during the investigation. So the investigators began interviewing Jonathan's neighbors, colleagues, and family. When the investigators interviewed Jonathan's co-workers, they all had good things to say about their colleague. He was seen as someone who always created a happy and cheerful environment at work. None of the people at Jonathan's work told the police anything about him facing any emotional or mental crisis. One of his work friends told the police that he was always telling jokes and would try to make people around him feel comfortable. They also said that Jonathan was never angry at work or showed any signs of mental health problems that could lead to something as big as killing his own family, then taking his own life. One of Candy's neighbors, Burham, also remembered him in good words while talking to the media after the incident. According to Burham, Jonathan Candy always tried to help others in whatever capacity he could, while remembering a personal moment. Burham told the media that Jonathan helped him fix his car and lawnmower once, and even fixed ceiling fans for another neighbor. Burham first shared that he was a very good friend of Jonathan Candy, and never got even the slightest idea that there was something wrong between Jonathan and Lindsay. He also said that they both flew their drones together and never heard of any incident between him and his wife Lindsay. When the police started interviewing his family and close relatives, they started to see a different side of Jonathan, the Candy family, according to a family close to Lindsay. Candy, she had recently opened up to them about the couple having arguments about their finances. None of those relatives expected that those arguments could lead to such a tragedy, but as for the police, it did raise a lot of questions about the exact nature of the relationship between Jonathan and his wife. The investigators now had a lead to follow the Candy family's finances and the deposits posited for the once temper-ridden village. When they looked into them, the details discovered made this case even more complicated than before. Jonathan was the only breadwinner of the family, as his wife Lindsay was a housewife who looked after the 4 children, but he was only a part-time worker as their sons grew. The family's living expenses also increased, and the records showed that the Candy family had several unpaid debts, which were a clear sign that they were facing financial struggles, from medical bills to bank loans and overdue credit card bills. The documents found in the Candy family's house made investigators believe that financial struggle might have been the one major reason why Jonathan took such a radical step. It was hypothesized that Jonathan may have given up on the pressure of providing for his family because he wasn't making enough as a part-time marriage strains worker. When Jonathan's relatives were interviewed, some of them also shared that he had told them he was dissatisfied with his job, and the new indication essentially showed that the marriage had been a mishap. Felt he hadn't accomplished anything considerable in his life. He also felt trapped in his role as a father and a husband, but knew that there was no way out of those burdens. The police knew they were going in the right direction, so they dug deeper into the marriage and marital strains between Jonathan and Lindsay Candy. While most of their friends and neighbors knew them as a happy couple, the family members close to the two told investigators that Jonathan and Lindsay had started to frequently argue in the months before the incident happened. Most of these arguments were about finances, and Lindsay had shown her concern about the future to several family members. The debts were piling up, and Jonathan felt he couldn't control the situation. This led to a major argument between Jonathan and Lindsay. On the night before the tragedy, according to the Res, this fight may have taken things over the line to the extent that Jonathan lost control of himself and decided to kill not only his wife, but his 3 sons. In light of the interviews with Jonathan and Cindy's relatives, the investigation team was now trying to find answers to a new question. What exactly happened during the final minutes of the arguments that resulted in something as extreme as 5 deaths while searching Jonathan Candy's workspace? The police found a diary that he had been keeping for months. The content of the diary was disturbing as it revealed frustrations, abandonment, and disorientation in one of the entries. Cindy's relatives. The resulting thoughts flashed through his mind as he listened to the diary that he had been keeping for months. The content of the diary was disturbing, as it revealed the perception of his wife and was no longer the man his family needed. At different points, he had also written about the darkest thought of giving up on everything, and had expressed his frustration about his family's future. The contents of Jonathan's diary were a clear sign that Jonathan Candy was facing a serious mental health crisis before the tragic incident. And how he did not mention it to anyone or try to get help. Joni Johnson, a forensic psychologist, was called by the police to study Jonathan's behavior and thoughts. From what had been found about him through the evidence and the interviews, Johnston's report revealed that Jonathan may have suffered from severe depression and psychosis, but he kept it all to himself and pretended to be a strong and humorous man who loved having fun and making others laugh. The report also said that depression in men is different from women, as men are less likely to share negative emotions. She wrote that such men hide their pain, which leads to sudden emotional outbursts and lose control over themselves. The psychologist's findings also revealed that Jonathan may have suffered from mental health problems for a long time without asking any of his friends or family for support. As a result of these findings, Jonathan's diary was studied even more closely by the police. Each entry revealed increased L-negative thoughts of Jonathan about his family life and his role. This made one thing clear. As cheerful and fun-loving as Jonathan was from the outside, he was carrying a massive psychological burden on the inside. The report by forensic psychologists explained that for most men suffering from depression, it is difficult to seek help, as it often shows them as vulnerable. Social expectations add to the pressure, as everyone expects them to be the pillars of their family who can provide for them financially. This makes men feel that they cannot fail. The police also started looking at other factors that might have contributed to Jonathan's condition. These included societal pressure on him to fulfill his role as a father and breadwinner for his family. So why was the youngest son left unharmed by Jonathan? Was it because of last-minute remorse, or did the two share a special bond that Jonathan didn't feel with his wife or his other three sons? The investigators are still trying to find the answer to that question, but haven't reached a clear answer. Family conclusion. A few days after the incident, Ethan's baseball team, Mustang Misfits, arranged a gathering in his memory, in which Rhonda Armstrong, the baseball coach's wife, said that she was in complete disbelief after seeing the news, because her son and Ethan were best friends, and their family had known the Candy family for 3 years. She shared with the local news channels that the souls of each of the victims always radiated brightness. She also shared that the Candy kids and their parents were always smiling and laughing and always made her forget all her troubles as soon as she saw their smiles. According to Rhonda, they were the kindest, sweetest, best people she had come across in her whole life. Cammie Cruz, Lindsay Terry, Candy's friend, took to Facebook and posted about her memories and friendship with Lindsay. She wrote that it was devastating and unimaginable to hear about the news of one of her closest friends. She further wrote that she had been in tears and didn't know how to process the news, because Lindsay was loved by everyone and was special to so many people. Cruz's post said that her friend brought laughter and joy to every conversation she was a part of, and was the light in her mother and father's life, since both Rhonda's and Lindsay's sons were on the school's baseball team. This brought them together. Rhonda told the media that Lindsay always treated her son Cooper as her own and was the kind of person who would give you the shirt off her back. Dylan Candy was also missed by family and friends after the tragic incident. According to T.J. Armstrong, Dylan never missed any of Ethan's baseball games and always made sure that his younger brother was at practice. Becky Young Horton, one of his choir teachers from middle school, wrote in a Facebook post that Dylan was an incredible young man who had a big heart. Brian Stackhouse, Oklahoma Baptist University's director of athletic bands, was placed on the complex first base as soon as he joined the Bison Brigade, the college's marching band. He further added that Dylan was a delight to work with and was someone who always stayed happy. Even if he was having a rough day, he would still make sure to be friendly to the people around him and was a great example of working through hard situations, perseverance, and dedicating oneself to something greater. Stackhouse also told the media that Dylan Candy was a very social person and made friends easily wherever he went. The ABU's athletic band director said that one of the favorite moments of Dylan's brief stay at the university and with Bison Brigade was when in August 2023, the drummers were rehearsing their drumline cadence for the first time at band camp, and he didn't know it also included a solo for him. After the tragic incident, the Bison Brigade announced that it would retire Dylan's bass drum in uniform and that a memorial was also planned for the floor where the band department resides on campus. Ethan Candy was in 9th grade at Mustang High and was part of the Mustang youth sports baseball team, which meant the Candy family was always at his practices and games. In a post on social media, the league Ethan played in, Ethan Candy was described by Cooper Armstrong. T.J. Armstrong, son became best friends. According to the baseball coach, the main reason behind Ethan and Cooper's strong bond was that they both were funny and always stayed positive. Their teammates called them twins because they never separated and were close to each other. T.J. Armstrong called Ethan his sweet little candy man. He told the media that Ethan was a candle who was constantly smiling and laughing, and made his son happier. According to the coach, the Mustang youth sports baseball team was working on setting up a memorial bench for Ethan Candy at the Mustang High School. Lucas Candy, who was in 6th grade at Meadowbrook Intermediate School, was the youngest victim of the tragedy, according to family and friends of the Candy family. He was called Luke and was mostly seen playing with younger siblings of other baseball players during Ethan's practice games. T.J. Armstrong, while talking to the media about Lucas Candy, shared that he was a happy kid, kind and smart, and was always running up and down the bleachers or playing in the dirt during his brother's games. All that is left of the Candy family is the youngest son of Jonathan and Lindsay. It is difficult to understand the extent of psychological trauma the kid went through and is going to go through, keeping in view his whole life completely changed in a matter of a few hours. The child will need therapy, but he isn't the only one who has been destroyed by the tragic incident in his family. The people close to the Candy family have also been devastated by the incident that has changed the Yukon community for years to come. Brian Stackhouse, Oklahoma Baptist University's director of athletic bands, while talking about Candy, shared a list of resources for his band students and encouraged his students to seek help whenever they need it. In the past, there have been similar cases where one member of the family killed the rest of the members because of mental health problems they all had. One thing in common with Jonathan Candy, they were all facing the crisis of making ends meet for their families, and financial problems were one of the main reasons behind their emotional. All right, buckle up, because this one's straight out of a nightmare. November 9th, 1971, Westfield, New Jersey. John List, a seemingly ordinary dude with a wife, kids, and a big old house in the suburbs, decides to flip his entire life upside down. And not in the fun winning the lottery way. Nope, he wakes up, grabs a gun and starts murdering his own family. First up on his hit list, his 47-year-old wife, Helen. Bam. Gone. Next, his 84-year-old mother, Alma. Yeah, he shot her too, and if you think that's bad, hold on. It gets way darker. While his 3 kids were at school, John cleaned up, played it cool, and waited. When 16-year-old Patricia and 13-year-old Frederick came home, boom, he killed them too. And just when you think he's done with this sick, twisted rampage, John gets in his car, drives to his eldest son John Jr.'s soccer game, cheers him on like he's dad of the year, takes him home, and yep, you guessed it, shoots him. So, what the hell drives someone to annihilate their entire family? Cops dig into his life and find out he was drowning in financial problems after getting fired from his cushy job at the Jersey City Bank. Instead of telling his family, though, John pretended like everything was fine. He'd wake up every day, suit up, and leave the house as if he still had a job. Spoiler, he didn't. Bills piled up, debt suffocated him. At one point, he started stealing from his own mum's bank account just to keep up with the mortgage payments on their fancy mansion. And when the walls started closing in, he decided welfare was too humiliating. His solution? Murder his family and erase the problem. Yeah, real great logic there, John. Fast forward to 1990. List finally gets caught after being on the run for nearly 18 years. When he's dragged to court, he tries pulling the "it wasn't my fault" card, blaming his actions on PTSD and his impaired judgment. The judge? Not buying it. He gets slapped with 5 life sentences. No parole, no sympathy. But here's the kicker. This case isn't just about financial struggles or bad decisions. It's a haunting reminder of what happens when people bottle up their mental health struggles, let their pride get in the way, and let their darkest impulses take control. Kind of like what happened decades later with Jonathan Candy and his family. April 22, 2024. Yukon, Oklahoma. A father kills his wife and 3 kids, but leaves his youngest son alive. Why? Depression, mental health issues. But here's the thing. Just like Jonathan never talked about his struggles. He let the pressure build and build until it exploded in the worst possible way. The Candy family tragedy is a gut punch to anyone who thinks mental health isn't serious. Jonathan Candy's silence cost him his family and left his youngest son with scars that may never heal. What do we take from this? Ignoring mental health issues doesn't just hurt you. It can destroy everything and everyone around you. And if you or someone you know is dealing with this kind of pressure, talk to someone, get help. Because stories like these are just too many and too devastating to repeat.